against Geneva. But this whole thing, I mean, it's all a myth. I mean, it's all, this American history is a myth. The idea that America was a more moral country is a myth. One of the myths underlying the faith-based initiative is the idea that America was a much kinder and more generous nation during the Gilded Age, and that then religious charity was undermined by the creation of the New Deal and the Great Society, and that we need to undo those and restore things, you know, restore the kind of role of churches and religious conversion in social services. Now, where reality fails, I think it's just in the nature of reality that it's no match for these kind of really tidy ideological fictions, right? I mean, and that's true of kind of any system that has an overarching scheme in which everything fits together, because, you know, I don't think that a reality-based commentator can stand up here and say, well, there is a way to solve all of the country's problems. There is a way, if you just have a change of heart, to make America great again. You know, there is a kind of all-encompassing explanation that explains everything from why America's deeply in debt to why you're afraid your husband's going to leave you. And also, I don't think we can promise to change, and we can promise to maybe buttress people's finances to kind of help kind of restore a social fabric that helps hold families together. But you can't promise that you're going to create a society in which people will always be secure in their attachments, right? And so where we fail is that there's, you know, problems that don't have solutions and kind of anxieties that can't be solved, and no honest person can claim to, but this movement, you know, even though it can't deliver, it says it can.
Could you please comment on how the media, other than Salon.com, have handled these issues?
Well, there's a couple of things, and it depends on the issue. I mean, you know, I think a lot of journalists try hard but are constrained by the structures of their craft, you know, which says there's two sides to every story and you're not there to decide which one is true. And so in presenting something like creationism versus intelligent design, well, some people say this and some people say that, you know, and there's kind of the role of acknowledging that there is such a thing as truth has been lost, this kind of, you know, very like shallow kind of fairness. And you see that with all kinds of things. I mean, and one of the ways that this movement has been so successful is by creating all of these pseudo-scientific, paraprofessional organizations that give them a kind of legitimacy, so that you're no longer arguing about, say, does abstinence education versus comprehensive sex education work, or can homosexuality be cured, you know, with the right amount of prayer and therapy. You're not arguing anymore between like the pastor and the scientists. You're arguing between the kind of Christian nationalist scientist who comes you know, with all these degrees and seems like a perfectly legitimate professional person, and then, you know, the scientist who represents a kind of vast majority of scientific consensus. I think it's really, really, I mean, I think journalists do have a duty to go deeper and to not just say, some people say this, some people say that. But it's not always their fault. I mean, journalists get so much flack, but, you know, I know a lot of journalists and they try hard. A lot of it's more work, but it's not just laziness. If you're on deadline and you have 3 hours to report a story, it's sometimes the easiest way to do things. And so the pressure, I think, has to be on editors and producers to say, you know, not all views are equally valid, and there is such a thing as truth, and, you know, and to kind of demand that, and to demand that journalists are given, you know, the time and the leeway to kind of ferret out what's true and what's not.